Hello and welcome to the Adulting Well podcast. I am your co-host Joshua, and I'm joined today by Kevin. Kevin, what's going on today?
Well, we have a very special guest for our finale of season 4. Jackson Galaxy has joined us. Jackson really doesn't need much of an introduction to our listeners, but he is popularly known as the Cat Daddy, and he's the host and executive producer of Animal Planet's long-running hit show My Cat from Hell, which I highly recommend and am a fan of. He's also an author who has been a 2-time New York Times bestseller. And with 25 years of experience working with cats and their guardians, he's on a mission to educate people about cats and deepen the human cat bond while reducing the number of cats in shelters. I just want to say, Courtney sent us a long bio, but one of the things that really stuck out was at the end, and that your true goal is to help save all animals. And that is incredibly inspiring to me. I mean, there were a lot of things in your story and bio that I read prior to having you on that resonated. But our first question generally is kind of like, just give us a little like origin story, tell us where you grew up and especially your involvement with music, because that's incredibly important to our listeners.
I'm a New Yorker. I'm
Nice.
uh, I'm a Manhattanite, and yeah, I grew up there. No matter where I live, I still identify. I'm still New York, New York identified. And you know what? I gotta say, just tangentially, I have never been away from New York this long. This is it'll be a year coming up next month, and it's killing me. But that said, yeah, I mean, and that's the beautiful thing is, I mean, I started playing the guitar when I was 9 and immediately saw that as my calling, my thing.
At
And
9 years old?
yeah,
How did
yeah.
you get a guitar at 9 years old?
You know what? It was a hand me down of a hand me down. It was like one of those nylon string,
Yeah.
the neck was bigger than my hand kind of thing. And then after I'd been taking lessons from my cousin for about a year, my dad was like, and my cousin was like, you got to get him an actual guitar.
Yeah.
So I got my first steel string guitar when I was 11. And I want to show you if you can see this right here. You see that heavily decorated guitar right
Ooh,
there?
Yes.
That's the one. That's my
that's
original guitar.
beautiful.
And yeah, it turned into an art piece over the last couple of years because it's no longer playable. Um, but um,
Amazing.
but yeah, I I then just dove into it, and and that led to other things. I mean, I the beautiful thing was growing up in New York City is that my exposure to music was complete and beautiful, and because I was always sort of a big kid, I was able to fake my way into clubs early. But my best friend at the time, me and him, wrote a lot together, or just played a lot together, and he gave up on rock and roll by the time we were in the 10th grade, ninth grade,
Mhm.
something like that. And he became a jazz guitarist. And so my exposure to jazz was also complete and beautiful. And I spent a lot of my time at the Vanguard and Blue Note and places like that.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, no, I think that was a huge deal. Was growing up there, and yeah, that I stayed true to that for 20 some odd years. And really, it wasn't until um, it wasn't until the show took off that I was like, okay, I gotta make a choice here. This is just too much.
Right.
And so, yeah, I kind of let it go at that point. But yeah, I was identifying myself as a writer first and foremost, and a songwriter and a singer and a guitar player. That was my thing.
Were you
Yes.
cool?
Was I cool?
Yeah.
I wasn't cool, I don't think,
Yeah.
You sound
until
cool.
you know what? It was I didn't find my cool until like the 11th grade. I think
Right.
at
Yeah.
that point,
Right. Right.
it was a painful growth process. Man, I was like
Totally.
a chubby 6 foot tall seventh grader, man. I mean,
Wow.
I was a pituitary disaster. So it was tough. But yeah, no, I think the more confident I became. And also what was interesting is that I started to get into the theater around that time as well because I was writing music for theater. And then it just became this, well, why not do that too,
Mhm.
And
Nice.
that also helped with your cool a little bit.
Sure.
certain crowds for
Sure.
sure.
A little give and take.
Yeah.
It wasn't musical theater. It was,
Yeah.
The guitar
So-
helps immensely, I found as
Yeah.
a child.
Guitar does help, but I got it. Listen, I'm going to be completely forthcoming here. I did not like my guitar playing, my singing, my writing was never about like getting dates.
Oh
Like,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
I could, well, no, I mean, honestly, that's,
Yeah.
that's one of those things where I'm going to be a rock star and I'll,
That sounds very punk to me though, because like it's
Yeah.
almost like you can't say that if you're in a punk band, like you
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like literally, it was all I cared about.
Yeah.
And music was like all I cared about. And it's interesting because I mean, it really, you know what I got to say, as you get older, it really takes a lot of work to stay engaged and to stay like, and not become your parents and say, you kids are listening to crap. You know what I mean? What is this crap you're listening to? Back in my day, we knew music, and I'm trying hard.
I've got
that's my music backstory.
Did you play in bands?
Yeah. I mean, I played in bands. Interestingly enough, until I had enough guts to start my own band, which was a while.
Yeah.
Not until I was in college that I was like, you know what? But I played bass mostly in other people's bands, and then I finally found Sonic Youth helped. I gotta say,
oh wow,
knowing that like sound was more important than like straight up like Van Halen-ish technique. I found my ability to be proud of what I could do guitar wise.
Nice.
So yeah, no, I mean it was. Yeah, I mean, but bands, you know what? By the time I moved to LA, I was like, I'm done with bands, man. I don't want this democratic, not democratic, autocratic. I write the songs, but you guys have an equal voice. Garbage. I was done.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's horrible, man. I came to LA. I'm like, well, there's plenty of session guys here.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I think good call out, by the way, with Sonic Youth. I'm like, I got a little, oh yes.
It's honestly, one of my one story that when I was in college, I did a lot of sort of just roadie work, unloading and loading of bands that would come in. And my big thing was I got to work backstage at a Sonic Youth show.
No way.
They travel with about 30 guitars.
Yeah.
And, all of which with, 3 strings here, tuned to F sharp minor here, whatever it is. And I got to like unload the guitars and I got to like put them in the stands and I got to like, fawn over those guys. It was actually, what was crazy? I mean, I went to a very small college and it was a double bill. It was Sonic Youth and oh my God, why am I blanking on their name? Steve Albini's old band.
Big Black or Shellac?
Big Black. No, it was Big Black. So
Nice.
Big Black Sonic Youth. And it was
amazing.
Just like, it was earth shattering.
I bet.
Volume wise too, but it was great.
Yeah. So funny story. I used to do merchandise for the Yeah, and I got to do the McCarran Park pool shows with Sonic Youth that they did when the pool was still drained. And so I had seen Sonic Youth before, but like the whole scene with the sun going down and like them on stage in the middle of Brooklyn, like it was unbelievable. I mean,
you're like, I'm done. That's it.
I mean, why even bother? I'm not going to play the drums anymore. No more bands. I mean, between those two playing live together, like that, it was like the pinnacle of like great live performance, And
So, and
totally.
I really, and like I said, I mean, bands like that gave me so much confidence that my voice was just as valid as anybody else's, and it did, like, it took a while. I don't think I honestly, having started so early playing guitar and writing songs, I don't honestly think it was until I was in my, I would even say mid-20s, early to mid-20s, that I was like, no, this is me. Now I can step away from all of my influences. This is me,
That's awesome.
I was 42.
I'm still trying to figure it out. But One of the things that's interesting, and there was a bunch of parallels with your your story, your life story, and things that have happened to me too. I'm also sober. I'm a vegan. And
Evan's so nervous. I've never seen you this
I
nervous.
know. I'm like, wow. Like, and my mother-in-law actually turned me on to your show because she's like, I can't believe that you don't know who Jackson Galaxy is. Like, he's like, should be like your person. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, let me watch the show. And then I knew Hannah already, so we reached out to her to get the connection. So Hannah Shaw was on our show this
Yeah.
last year. But what resonated with me especially was your connection with animals and sort of how like it all comes together for you in many ways now, and sort of it seems like the lessons you learned from playing rock and roll, being in really DIY kind of band situations, and then kind of the success you've had over the years, like it's all rooted in this like deep connection and caring with animals. And one of my first bands was like a vegan hardcore band, and that's basically the reason I did it, was because of animals. And
Right. That's
so
amazing.
I've read a few, stories about kind of how you got into the animal welfare and caring for animals and the people that take care of them. But I think it'd be good for our listeners, especially the ones that don't know your backstory, to hear a little bit about that, and kind of, especially when you kind of hit your bottom with your drinking and the other stuff, because it's a really inspiring story, Jackson. And
Well, thanks.
it really, got me. So.
It's interesting too, because when I started writing that first book, Cat Daddy, that it was really interesting. I had only written not even a chapter. I was writing the section of the book where my friend the cat Benny was in his downward decline, and I was basically just waiting, just watching, waiting, being with him, and I couldn't handle the emotions of it, so I just started writing because that's what I know how to do. And we had just only been on the air for that first season, and we didn't even know if we were going to come back. The first season was only like 3-4 episodes, something like that. And a friend of mine sent that 10 pages to who would become my agent, and she went and ran with it, man. And I thought that was beautiful. So it was only supposed to be a story about a cat.
Right.
And then my publisher was like, no, we got to hear your story too. So the drug thing, the alcohol thing, my entire history with addiction, which is pretty primal with me, had to come into light, because it was really what helped define that relationship. And I was freaking scared, man. I really was.
Yeah.
And the first sort of, and I don't want to call it fan letter, but whatever, that I got from that book was from an addict who said that he didn't realize he had relapsed until he read it, and he was on his way to rehab when he wrote that. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing. And my history goes, if I trace it back, my addiction was strong when I was a child.
Right.
And we always refer to it as a disease. And my disease finally, and isn't it interesting, as I talk about getting into my 20s, where I was like, oh, I found my voice as a songwriter, I also started getting really loaded,
Right.
And by the way, I think that's a really huge mistake. And I don't know if you feel this way, but a really huge mistake that people make is that when they get sober, they disavow their life, and
Yes.
especially artists disavow their
Yes.
life creatively
Yes.
when they were using. And that's just ridiculous, man.
It's total bullshit, because I found, like, since I quit drinking, like, I've gotten better at everything creatively, because I'm actually like, because I'm not fucked up all the time. I think that's a huge myth about that. Yeah.
When you talk about, like, I think it was Ram Dass who would talk about, like,
Oh yeah.
get you to, what is it, the windows of the soul, that whole thing.
Right.
Sure.
What was that? The windows of reality, whatever the hell he said. I mean, I love him, but, and it does. It to a certain degree, and believe me, man, I mean, there's that tipping point where I'm doing, a whole truckload of acid just because I want to get to that place. And then you pass that stop and
Yeah.
you're heading down a hill someplace else, and you just don't know where that
Even Bukowski used to say, after 2 or 3 drinks, I'm just like any other drunk writing. I'm no good, you know?
Yeah, totally true. That's a great way of, I mean, but like I said, I don't want to discount it, because I think some of my best writing came from that time.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
again, I mean, you know, it also took many years off my life and almost killed me multiple times. And as I said in the book, and I don't think I was doing this for literary effect, is that one of the things that I heard from so many addicts who were on the verge of killing themselves was that, and I used this in a song one time, which was, you know, as this guy is just sort of drifting into his own oblivion, he stops and goes, wait, who's going to feed the cat? You know, and that moment of saying, wait a minute, this being who, if this being was human, or these beings were human, they'll be fine without me. And they'll be able to go to therapy,
Right.
You know, but these animals won't. And I think that experience of 10 years of shelter work and stepping into my own as a cat person and whatever, I think that saved me, man. Honestly, and I know by now it's cliched, I should have been dead 25 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I'm glad I'm around.
Yeah, we are too. And, you know, it's interesting. I think a lot of times the confusion of, especially people that are like newer in recovery, and I see this a lot, they want to disconnect from everything that they could perceive as being sort of poisonous to their recovery.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is we're all the sum of our entire story. So as you sort of work through amending your life with the people around you and the especially the ones that you've harmed, I think owning that story is just as important, you know, for your recovery as anything else, because you can't help somebody else if they can't connect with you. And I'm not a big proponent of like meetings where people do these like giant talks about all the bad stuff that happened to them either. But I think that it's important to make that connection with people so that they understand we do get better. You know, there's a way to get well. And, you know, if I was this sick and I'm this well now, then you can do it too. And come with me, you know? So,
and also I think in that exact line of thought, I think that what keeps us sick is also that notion that I either have to be perfect or I have to be dead, you know? And I think that's something else that we can teach the newcomers, is that there's no such thing. There's no such thing. And God knows I know that. I mean, you know, I'm by no means, you know, some icon of sobriety. I mean, I stepped into the rooms in '02, and you know, I've relapsed multiple times, you know, but
it happens.
And honestly, I got to say that my last relapse was after the publication of Cat Daddy, and that was the guilt. That at that point, because just putting it into writing like that, and not really touching on the sort of fragility of your sobriety, which I just don't think I hit in that book. When I finally did go out, that's what I had to get over. I felt like I owed an amends to like everybody who ever read that book, you know. So, and I still do to some extent, but different reasons. So I agree. I mean, I think it's something that it's so important. And you know what? This does sort of go into the world of working with animals.
Yep. Is
that if you want to be taught humility on a daily basis, work with animals, you know, because honestly, they will hand you your lunch on a daily basis. And it's important because it helps me in many ways to realize that I will never have my shit together.
Right.
I will never be that guy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we rescued a kitten that's got a feral mommy during the pandemic, and she's still young and she's kind of the boss of the house now, and we're trying to I'm trying to cope with that. And we have an older dog as well. And it's kind of interesting to watch the dynamic in the house change as she's getting older too. She's growing up and not being as like crazy kitten, but they, both of them, the dog, because of his unconditional, absolute adoring love for me, and the cat, because she will surprise me with these, like, this is what I'm doing now and you can't stop me because I'm a cat.
Yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
like I'm like, I wake up every day and I'm like, okay, so what's it going to be today? But like,
Yeah.
I love them so much. They're just like such great family members. And
Isn't that it's really interesting? I mean, to keep making this sort of sobriety. Well, and hey, by the way, the moment that we're living in, you know, the idea of either accepting our powerlessness or railing against it. And I think that that's what makes people hate cats, is that they are so uncomfortable with the sense of being powerless, especially to an animal, especially having to compromise with an animal, And I mean, we learn that every day. I mean, we've been fostering a lot of kittens lately, but we're fostering 2 kittens right now that are really young, one of which is a lot of work because he's so feral, and it's right on that line. And every day you go in there and you work with them, you deal with them, and you don't know what the outcome's going to be. Right. You don't know, just because you know a lot. My wife knows in terms of taming ferals, she's light years beyond me. You don't know how the story's going to end. And I think it's just really important to expose yourself to these things, to admit that you're not the director.
No, and it is humbling though. I mean, especially as like a primarily dog person most of my life. I've had a few cats over the years, and most of them have just adored me and been my cat, like no matter what household I was in. This one is my wife's cat for sure. She is her person. She goes.
How's that going for you?
I'm really sad about it. I'll look over and they're like cuddling, and and then she comes over to me.
An interesting dynamic that you can get jealous of that. Like we've had that in our house too, where the cat will only get on my legs in the living room and her legs in the bedroom, and it's like, what am I, chopped liver in here now all of a sudden?
And so my wife does one better. I mean, of course, we're just totally kidding, but she'll, one of the cats will just cuddle up to her in bed, and never with me, and she'll look over at me. She's like, "So how you feeling about this?"
Yeah, totally. Totally.
But we can do that because we've got 7 of them. So
well, see, that's what's and the dog is my dog. I mean, he's all about me. So there's that too. I mean,
it's the dogs. It's interesting. We have 3 dogs, and one of them, my wife is Persian, and we had gotten this. It's kind of a long story, but short version of it is that the story had come out of Iran about it was a viral video about this dog who video captured him going through something that was pretty horrible, and he was rescued by a dog rescuer there, and then the word got around. It's a very small, the animal rights world in Iran and here, pretty small, and the word got to us, and she said we need to get him. And so we got him from Tehran. He flew here, sight unseen for the most part. And then he gets here. And I think she thought he was going to be like her dog. And that didn't happen. He's kind of my boy. He's a problem, man. He's a problem. But
who wouldn't be after all that?
Oh my God. He was so beat up, man. And it's, when he first got here, he didn't know how to walk on the floor. Like he's a freaking, the second he came out of his carrier, I was like, oh, you're a pony. I mean, like, he's like, a 75-pound dog. And I had to like lug his ass all over the place because he didn't know what to do when he hit a floor. Totally unhouse trained, obviously very scared of a lot of different people and noises to this day. Certain noises just send him, But I adore. Maybe that's it. I mean, maybe it's like that, patron saint of lost causes kind of thing, where the more broken somebody or some, whether they're human or non-human is, I seem more drawn to them, you know, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's the story.
Well, at least he found a safe place to live, right? I mean,
That's for sure.
you all
Gravy
found each
train,
other.
man. You
Yeah.
hit the gravy train.
I say that to my dog all the time. Do you know how good your life is here in Mill Valley, California?
That's right, man.
Handmade food, sleeping in bed with us, you
I
know.
know. Yeah.
What a
No,
lucky
he's
guy.
my boy's got it made.
Yep.
But
So
does Eric.
did I see that you are also now you have some other animals in your household? I watched the first episode of the new season.
Oh, that. Well, yeah. So Salvador, who is a rooster,
What?
he was our foster rooster.
Okay.
The thing was, we got him. Our life as it pertains to chickens was a really weird little moment where we had neighbors who, you know, the living circumstances weren't ideal. We took these chickens, built them a killer freaking run and coop and all that.
Nice.
And so those were our first two chickens. One died very soon after. A lot of these chickens get egg bound, especially if they're created for the industry. And then, you know, the other chicken was lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so we adopted another one of her breed. And then the rescuer who was giving us this, she goes, look, this little chick, little baby chick is really ugly and nobody's going to adopt this chick. So maybe you guys can take him or her. We didn't know because you don't know at that age. So yeah, we spent the next couple of months like bringing him up, knowing that it probably wasn't ideal, especially when we found out he was male. But yeah, in that one episode, so his name is Salvador, and Salvador, we counted the most he ever crowed in a single day was like 120 times.
Oh my God.
And we're in the middle of freaking Los Angeles, man. Like, you know, we have neighbors.
Yeah.
We were scared, you know? So yeah, so in the middle of that episode, it was always like, there's Salvador yelling his ass off in the background. But now, no, he's now waiting for adoption at Best Friends Sanctuary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's
nice.
Talk about having it made, man.
Yeah, that's a great sanctuary.
Yeah.
So you basically brought Kauai to your house.
Yeah, we did. I mean, you know, the funny thing is that, like, you know, the chicken thing, again, people assume that we have chickens because we want eggs and we're vegan. Right. So we feed them back to the chickens. We feed them to the dogs and the cats, but yeah, we don't have anything to do with it. But yeah, the foray into chickens was new. We also have a turtle who was my mom's turtle. And when she passed, we got him. And it just keeps growing. And we don't have any place to grow, man. We live in a place. So
you're in the middle of LA.
We're maxed. We're at our limit.
You're definitely going to run out of room at some point in LA.
No, no, that happened a while ago. Oh my God, no. I mean, the kittens that we're working with, we will only work with seriously feral kittens because usually what we'll do is we'll separate them to just really be intensive because we only have a bathroom. That's all we have for these guys. So as soon as they get like social, then they go to somebody else's house. Yeah, we're done. We've been cut off. Yeah.
It's amazing though. So talk about what the show origin story is pretty amazing too. Cause it was, it just was like a DIY reel, right? Like you did it with somebody that you met that like,
it was interesting because I met people and I met other people and there was one reel that we did that went absolutely nowhere. But the whole time I was just sort of like, okay, I was not driven to do this in any way, shape, or form. I was still like, let me just make a living here doing my cat thing, but I'm still doing music. And then it was just a matter of the right people seeing the right thing and somebody from a production company seeing me teach a class and then onward into their office. And then, so there was a very tentative deal struck with Animal Planet, which was like, here, we'll pay for, a tease, just a basic sort of, this is what the show would look like. And all props to Freeball, the production company. We stretched that thing to an entire segment. And once they realized how inexpensive we could make this show, it seemed as though there wasn't a ton of creative besides following what I normally do.
Right.
And then they picked it up. So the amazing thing was it happened really fast.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I mean, I was here for 2 weeks before a friend of mine who wound up doing initial pitching was like, well, you're a cat guy and you look like that, so we got to do something,
Right.
And and between the time that Three Ball took me on to the network taking us on to filming a 3-episode season was a couple of months, and then it sat because they couldn't. And this is interesting and reflective of where we were. Advertisers were like, cats,
Right.
do cat people actually leave their house? That kind of thing. Like,
Wow.
there was, and in fact, the first couple of seasons of the show, I think the only real true sponsors we had were like Swiffer and like,
This is
cleaning
before
supplies.
like cats and true crime Venn diagram met like 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think that once the show had been on the air for about 3 years, then we had true advertisers come on board, Litter and whatever. But it took a while, and but that's why it paused for quite a bit. And even after our first season, I mean, they were throwing spaghetti against the wall. I mean, it was, we didn't have much support at all. I got a lot of support from my cat community, from people that I knew, bloggers and whatever. And we spread the word around. So yeah, it was, believe me, especially now looking back on it, I mean, 10 seasons later, I mean, I know exactly how lucky I was.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but yes, I feel like the story is usually that someone wants to be on TV or have a show so bad that they get there. But yeah, it just kind of came to you because because you're perfect for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting how it wasn't until it was really close. Like we had already done all of our meetings with Animal Planet. We had filmed the reel. We had done all that. That finally I was like, yeah, I really want this. Like, and you got to put that energy out there. As I found, the more blasé you are about it, the less. And so yeah, it wasn't until the end that I was like, I really want this, and I still had to be talked into it. Like I was always on the verge, as addicts will do, of completely hand grenading everything.
This is very relatable to me, like very relatable. That's what this show is to me now. Like, I almost blow this show up every week. I mean, Kevin knows.
It's hard, man, and I think it's sure it's a reflection of your own stuff, but I mean, I think that, and again, I also think it's that reflection of perfection. Where, listen, when they fed me the name of this show, I almost had a freaking heart attack. Like, in fact, I did. Like, I like the old Fred Sanford, like, Elizabeth, it's the big one, But like, I really thought I was going to die, because I knew that, like, my animal rights people and my shelter people and anybody who knew me knew that was like the antithesis. My cat from hell, good Lord. But they were right, I mean, we attracted all of the sort of cat curious, or just the true crime curious, and we made a show out of it.
Well, and I think that, when people see the show and kind of hear you talk about it, the fact is the name is a teaser to get people to watch, because the real fact of it is, and as you've said over and over again in every episode, there's no bad cats. Like, you just like knowing how to work with them and kind of getting the best sort of relationship. It's funny because it's not even like, you're never going to train a cat, obviously, but getting the best relationship out of your dynamic with your animals is like, it seems like that seems such a simple idea, and it's so hard to achieve, especially with, I mean, they're just naturally wild,
They're naturally wild, and we naturally make excuses. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. I think that we don't want to take ownership of dysfunction, and whether that's with other humans in our house or non-humans, it's a really tough thing. And I think one of the joys I get, obviously I love working with cats, but if I just love working with cats, I would just work with cats. I think part of the thing that I love is I like working with humans. I'm not one of those animal people who hates humans.
Right.
I love humans, and for the most part, and I especially these days, and I just I love that moment where we allow for the space to learn on your own about yourself,
Right.
and then be able to bring that to the relationship that you have with a cat, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, I know that might sound far-fetched to some, and it always has, but I mean, if you look at like the comments on my videos or anything, there's always like a handful of people who are like, kick the cat to the curb, what the hell's wrong with you, you know?
Yeah.
And
Ugh.
no, hey, listen, I mean, look, here's the positive. The positive is that at least when I jumped on for the ride, and that was my first job in a shelter was when I think 93. And at that point, our kill rate in shelters, how many animals we were killing in shelters per year, was in a neighborhood of 10 to 12 million per year. And we finally cracked that million mark where we're down in the 800,000s at about this point, which is still a lot. But that's because there's been this slow motion shift where animals are not perceived as property anymore, or we're getting there. And of course, that feeds into my whole take on animals in general. I just sort of slow walk that one sometimes because, you know, I don't want to turn people off. But I think that's a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, the whole kicking to the curb thing is still very prevalent.
I can't imagine thinking of my cat as anything other than a family member, like an equal family member in my house. Like that's inconceivable to me.
And a poll came out, I think it was a year and a half or so ago, that showed that 85% of people who had cats in their homes in the States at this point, 85% or so considered them family members. And that's a huge jump.
That is, I mean, that's massive.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of it is, you know, and I think one of the things that draws me to your not just the show, but I've been watching your instructional videos because having a kitten, and I'm 50, you know, is a lot of, you know, I have 2 kids and a dog, and I've had, like I said, cats before, but it's just a different time in my life. Being able to understand, no matter what, that this little, you know, creature is going to kind of do what they want, and it's my job to take care of them the best I can without, you know, wreaking havoc on their little brains and lives. And so watching the instructional videos, the point is actually is more the way that you present the information is digestible, and it puts the responsibility on me as the adult member of the family. And I love that. Like it just is like, it's my job to be a better guardian to this little creature. Like it's not their job to be different than how they are, because they're never going to be different than how they are, but they can live better in the environment if I'm a better, like, sort of member of the family. So it's just like,
yeah, and I'm glad that you pick up on that. I mean, I think if there's anything that is just like sort of the linchpin of whatever approach I've got right now, which is this is a relationship. And you bring to this what you would bring to any other relationship. And I think the hardest, you know, I mean, for me, listening is not easy, especially if I'm not interested. Sort of that that day to day, like I care about everything that you do, and if I don't, I tell you about it, and I need some space or whatever. Vulnerability is a big thing, and I have never been very good at being truly vulnerable. It's one thing to be vulnerable on stage, which I'm good at actually. What I'm not good at is I sit in a room with you, and the idea further to be vulnerable to a non-human animal is really not okay with us. It's not only come from a history of dominion, you know, to go to a future of partnership is we're still not there yet. And I think we've seen a lot of examples recently where eyes are being opened to what a future with animals can look like. That's not what it is right now.
Sure.
And I think the first step, honestly, if you think about it, the quick decline of animal entertainment, at least circuses.
Yeah.
Big freaking deal. It happened fast.
Yeah.
From standing on the side being freaks with signs in lion costumes outside the circus to Ringling Brothers dying was a pretty fast thing. And that is because we realized that asking an animal, a tiger or a lion, for instance, to jump through a flaming hoop and applaud for that is not okay. And I think from there we can make a lot. Man, I'm going off, but I think that we can make a lot more strides, and I think we will. I think we're changing rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those guys dressed up outside the circus. So, you know,
Kevin, I'm really worried that Julie's going to fire us if we don't ask her question.
That's right.
Time runs out.
So,
you're fireable.
Well, we have a marketing director that's like, she's just really amazing and is very much a cat person. She's very much an animal person. She's very much also a human person. She loves people and is just she's amazing. We love Julie.
She's amazing.
And we don't talk about her enough on the show, but she has an elder cat named Coco that does a deep meowing after she uses her litter box. And she doesn't seem upset, but she's more announcing it to her.
Should we ask real quick, Jackson, do you mind if we ask you a cat question? Because you probably
no, that's just fine.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah,
not sure if I can answer it, but that's fine.
So she says her cat meows and lets her know after she uses the litter box in this deep like meow that she doesn't seem to normally use.
I bet it's that like or that wail,
or like that was good. You know what? And this is, I know it's a cheap answer, but it is definitely cat to cat thing. And I think that you said she was older
cat. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, look, if she's always done it her whole life, that's one thing. If she started doing it more recently, I would definitely have that checked out, only because you don't want it to be sort of this like, ouch, that hurt.
Right.
And in a lot of ways we'll never know, unless we go and find out, which, it's really been hard because usually I'm the first to send people to the vet, just because I think it's the first place we should go. But it's been really hard this year. Anybody who has to take their animals to the vet during lockdown knows how painful it is to have to hand them off in the parking lot, not come in, not be their really advocate in the room. I mean, I think the vet industry as a whole has done really good in adapting to this. But that being said, I would still just make sure if Coco hasn't been doing this her whole life, then that would be the first place I would look. I think, especially if they get older, digestively things get a little wonky, and it could be as simple as kidney issues, whatever, or hard poops, man. Depending on what you're feeding your cats, and I can go on and on about nutrition, but
sure.
But yeah, unfortunately, not the best answer in the world, but
no, but I think it'll help. And she mostly just wants Coco to be famous, so there you have it.
Oh, there you go. Oh, this is all boy.
Shout out to Coco. So I one of the things that I found really amazing is, so you started before the pandemic to do your Total Cat Mojo live show, where you got to bring music and all of your advocacy and also puppets.
Wait, what is this?
So he does a live show that's come on, Joshua.
I don't know. I don't do any research.
This is why I'm the research person. But it looks to me, and I don't know if the show ever made it up to Northern California, but the next time we are going as a family. For sure. But it looks like you get to incorporate all the things you love into one stage show. I mean, holy moly.
I gotta say, one of the most perfect things I've ever had the pleasure of, perfect feeling, where I get to go on a stage where I'm more home on a stage than I am right here.
Right.
I get to play my music. My wife is a puppeteer, so we incorporated puppets on a big screen. Mojo is my sidekick, Mojo the puppet, and we do sort of like a talk show. I
love it.
And it was this is before Charlie Rose was disgraced, but it was and it was called Cat to Cat was the name of the show. And idea here was that I was the first human guest on his show, but we broke up all of the.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh no, technical
Little bit of story along the way, and we did, I think, 16 dates, including, this is why it's up it's right there.
Yeah, I
I
saw it.
play the Wiltern, man, and which, frighteningly enough, that's where we kicked off the damn tour.
Yeah.
And at the Wiltern, man, I was not okay. It's funny because about a week before, I met Amy Mann on a plane.
Oh my God.
And we got along. We just had a conversation for hours. I loved her, and of course, I've always loved her music. And so I asked her to come, and I gave her free. Yeah, me too. And I asked her, and I gave her free tickets and whatever. And I get up on the stage, and I walk on the stage playing, and I walk out there, and she's the first face I see, and I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So so the tour, we were supposed to tour we were supposed to be touring in 2020, but we had to cancel everything. And it looks like 2021 is probably not going to happen either. Yeah. Is my guess. I don't think it's going to be safe to do. So yeah, I mean, I'll get back to it as soon as I can, because it was just so wonderful to I'm just one of those people who, I always knew this, but I don't think I realized it until the pandemic hit, that my inability to go out there to other places it feels like someone cut off one of my legs. Like I am so ripped up about not being able to do performances. And every place we go to shelters as well. I have something called the Jackson Galaxy Project, and that is affiliated with a lot of rescues and shelters around the country. So we do all that and the show. And yeah, it's been, I mean, listen, I'm not complaining. We're safe. We're healthy here. Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Well, and for a quick tie-in too, talk a little bit, and Courtney was on before, kind of, we were doing like a little pre-talk. And for people that don't know, Courtney is Jackson's publicist and has been great in getting you on the show, which we appreciate. But we talked about the cat camp. And I know Hannah is part of that as well. And, just so because I want people that especially ones that don't follow you already, that listen to our show, to get the full spectrum of all the things you do, the project you just mentioned as well. Maybe just give us a brief on that, and then the cat camp.
Sure. I mean, the Jackson Galaxy Project, I started the Jackson Galaxy Foundation, my first foray into a 501c3, which everybody was like, oh, don't do that now. Yeah. And they were so right. It almost ate me alive. It's a lot of work. But my idea was just to bring work into shelters that I thought, when I was a shelter worker, would have helped, whether that be for the animals or for the humans. And we introduced some programs to help cats move through the system alive, and not just alive, but ready to take on challenges and whatever. And I think that also helped the humans. And then I did myself and everybody else the favor of merging with Greater Good, which is a much larger organization, and becoming a signature program within them. And since then, we've been able to take the message and the programs. I think that we've just surpassed, we have a program called Cat Positive, which is teaching cats clicker training, so that they become more adoptable. We keep their minds and their bodies occupied. It is one of the ways I've learned how to work with animals.
Interesting.
And teaching it to volunteers and staff members. And we've just now passed over 100 unique shelters who have graduated the program. So it's a big deal. Anyway, yeah, that's the Jackson Galaxy Project. And of course, you can find out more about that, jacksongalaxyproject.org. And then Cat Camp is this wonderful, wonderful thing that I actually went to the first cat camp, I think, or the second, I can't remember. It was every year in New York. And it was founded by Christina Ha, who is the owner of Meow Parlor, one of the first cat cafes in the US. And she started it basically as an advocate. as somebody who themselves like wasn't in the world of advocacy until she saw a stray cat on the street. And it was an amazing event. And I thought it was organic in that way. It was like one of those, yeah, let's all buy some cat ears and walk around and love on each other, which it was, but it was also advocacy. It was what can you do for the cats in New York, the community cats, learning about TNR, having adoptable animals, getting involved in organizations in your area, bringing together that sort of cat loving sort of tribe in New York and exploding it. And so I signed on the next year and became a part owner of it. And then this year happened and everything went to hell.
Yeah.
We had just started expanding it, where it went from New York to, we expanded to one event in Vegas. This year we were going to go, 2020, we were supposed to go to New York and San Diego and one other, and then everything blew up. So the cool thing was, there is a silver lining here, is that we made the decision to just pivot and try a virtual event.
Oh, wow.
And it went incredibly well.
Good.
And the biggest reason why it went well, other than the fact that Hannah and myself and a bunch of other really cool cat people had a lot of cool things to say about cats, and we had people coming in, we had great chats going on and all that, and fun stuff as well. And Petco Foundation came in and paid for it so that nobody had to pay anything to get in. It's totally free.
Oh, amazing.
It is. It's, I mean, it gave us this lease on life, really, to blow this thing out. So then we did another one, and again, it grew. We're just gonna keep up with it.
Nice.
I mean, because now we have the ability to make this community global, which is what is happening. And I think that, and let's just not forget. I know I'm going on, but let's not forget. Yes, whatever the glue is, at any point in time that we needed to remember that we are part of a whole, this would be that moment, and that's why I think everybody's so relieved to come in, raise their hand, be a part of something, and laugh together a little bit and learn something about how you can help animals. So I'm really I couldn't be happier about where we are right now. And when we get to go live again, which my thought is it won't be until 2022, but at that point, it'll be more of a celebration and not like this do or die, because New York is a tough joint, man. Like, if you want to crack a nut,
Right.
do it in Akron.
Yeah. Well, we're running up against it on time, and we don't want to keep you over our promised sort of end time, but I just have to say thank you so much. Like, it was nice to get more of a personal perspective on you and kind of what motivates you, and to understand that we're really, like, you really drove home the point of us all being connected, all of us beings, and how you're tackling that as a sort of a positive force in not just the cat community is growing and getting more connected, like you mentioned, which is amazing, but just animal advocacy as a whole, and because they need us, we've been the ones taking from them for so long. And
so long. Yep. And I'm glad you brought that up. Before I lose you, I just wanted to say that it doesn't matter when in your life you come to it. Like, you were in a vegan punk band early on in your life.
Yeah.
I didn't associate as being a true animal activist until I met my wife, who had been vegan for 20 years beforehand. And she was the one who really pointed out to me, can you call yourself an animal activist if you just stop at cats? And I think it's important to remember that why do we stop at cats? A lot of times it's because that's who's in our house.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important. A great story, and I'll leave you guys, but a great story was my mom, who was a lifelong New Yorker, who one of the reasons I admired her so much is because she never stopped learning, and she never stopped, stopping for a second and saying, should I do this? And of course, trying to get my folks to be vegan or whatever was an uphill battle. But there was this story in Brooklyn of this pig who had gotten loose from on his way to a slaughterhouse in Brooklyn or Queens, and the story captivated New York City, and everybody. And I think that pig wound up at Jon Stewart's place, in his wife's place. But my mom fell in love with this pig, and from that moment on, bacon was off the plate. You
Oh
know,
wow.
but I think that that's something that we all have to
Yeah.
just listen. We're making that move anyway, whether
Yeah.
it's for the planet or for the animals or for your health, whatever it is. Um, Try it for a second, you know,
Yeah.
because yeah, as you're saying, the animals are counting on us. They have no voice, and we've been messing with them pretty horribly for a good long time.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's where I'll stop.
Well, thank you.
Oh
And-
my gosh, Jackson Galaxy, you're just a cool dude. You're just a
You guys are a lot of fun, man.
just a great guy to talk to. Thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on the show.
We really
My pleasure,
appreciate
you
it.
guys. My pleasure.
This is our season finale for season 4.
Woo!
And so we're creeping on 50 episodes too, which is pretty amazing for the
That
little
is
podcast
amazing.
that could. And we had a great year. I mean, this season was amazing. We had you and Hannah and Ian Mackay and a bunch of other people that we really love and respect. And so it's been a fantastic season. We are continuing to donate our Patreon money to our friends at Hospitality House in San Francisco, which helps individuals that are suffering from mental health issues and addiction get off the streets through art therapy and other really progressive peer-to-peer counseling means, and we just love them. So we always give them a big shout out, and we, you know, between my birthday and the show, we raised them some pretty good money this year, and they're a small organization. So if you have a chance, check them out. Please go to Jackson's many different programs and websites, look at what he's doing, especially not just the advocacy part of it and the work with shelters, but also the products that are, I'm like now I'm shopping, like there's like amazing stuff for cats, and the stuff actually,
Oh yeah, you're
works with
everywhere.
them.
You're
Works with them.
everywhere.
You
in the
know,
store.
and this isn't obviously like a sales pitch kind of show, but you know, the stuff that you're doing is actually like, it cares for the animal. It's not just like a, you know, sell this product, slap your name on it, which,
Oh, you know what, Kevin? And I swear I'm not a shill. I swear, but I want to say I learned whisker stress from one of your products, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Little things. People still think that's crazy sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you noticed that. I'm not. I think that, first of all, I think people think I'm rich, which is rich. And the second thing is I don't. There's a reason why I haven't put my name on like cat food, for instance.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well,
because money would be good, but I don't.
mean, you know, when you start becoming the Kiss of like the cat community, where you're putting your name on everything, then we can have a second discussion. But the fact is that the stuff really works, and it's like usually there's some kind of informational video with it, which I totally appreciate. But anyway, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. So
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on. And that's a wrap.